That's all we need. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host Alex, and with me I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. It's been a pretty good weekend for football. Bit disappointing with Socceroos and the Asian Cup, but apart from that, it was pretty good. We smashed your boys in the Air League.
That's it.
But no, I think I'm in a pretty good mood. Back to work. It's been a while since I've been at work, so Christmas holidays. But I'm getting back into the swing of things. Feeling pretty good.
Feels like it's been a while since we've had a City game, and quite a lot has happened since the last fixture. I think we said it might have been Mike, it might have been Logan, I can't remember who it was, just the concept that or it might have been yourself actually, going from the Sunderland game to the Millwall game, almost having an entirely new side potentially coming out for the game when you've got Philogene coming back in. And we also saw Zururi and Giles get debuts in this fixture against Millwall. And of course, Lakilo, who started in the game against Sunderland, now out on loan as well. So quite a bit of movement in those last few days of the transfer window. Quite a different side that lined up against Millwall. We'll talk transfer window specifics after this review of the Millwall game. But I think it all gets summed up in that first 10 or 20 minutes in this Millwall game. How did you find, I guess we hit the ground running, really?
Yeah, it was. I think there's been times this season where we've talked about or lamented the fact that we seem to be so slow to get going, and it's often felt like we needed to go behind before we really started playing the football that we're capable of. But luckily for us, that wasn't the case in this game, and we came out like a house on fire. We dominating possession. We were playing some really nice, crisp football, moving the ball around. There was good intensity in the press. We had Millwall in all sorts of trouble very early on. Exemplified in the way that goal came about. It was some nice passing, which sort of fell apart, but then we pressed and we regained. And a cracking strike from the new boy Zururi, who cannoned it back off the crossbar. And our returning hero, the man who's we've almost placed promotion on his shoulders. Philogene comes back after a little while out with injury. Johnny on the spot, takes a touch, puts it in the bottom corner. I'm away from the keeper. And it really felt like at that point, when we scored so early and we seemed to have Millwall figured out very quickly, that I thought, here's an opportunity that we would go and grab a few more. But it sort of never quite all fell, clicked into gear after that point. Despite, again, after the goal, still quite a long period of just controlled, dominant football, but lack of goals, and probably a lack of clear opportunities. We seem to hold the ball really well, and we had Millwall at arm's length, but we just couldn't quite get that killer ball in. And I think there's a couple of times, like Carvalho maybe should have passed a little bit earlier and then sort of drove into the box and got stuck behind players and went for the shot. And I think it ends up with Tufan of straying offside and getting in the way where it may otherwise have gone for a corner, or if he'd played it a bit earlier, we get a better opportunity. But I'm after what was a really lean sort of or a few disappointing results, we sort of turned it around now with 2 1-0s, probably kind of that have come about sort of in different sort of circumstances, but equally important and impressive for different ways.
Yeah, and I think that's it. And I think, as you said there, the fact that we were keeping Millwall at arm's length, I think in some ways the players probably got a little bit complacent. The fact that Millwall didn't have a shot at all in the first half, I think probably played into the players thinking of, we've sort of got the game won and dusted at 1-0 and not needing to go on and get that second as a matter of urgency. But I think Fletch on the comms at one point said we were trying to walk the ball into the goal at some points. And I think my bigger frustration, or my frustration with it as well, which sort of was seen from a few players, was it seemed as if they were more interested in playing for free kicks or penalties than they were in actually taking the shot and taking it on themselves. And I think it was mainly in the second half, but Philogene, at one point, I think the defender had his arms around him while he was in the box, and Philogene sort of was shielding the ball and then sort of tried to turn and had the arms on him and then sort of just went down thinking, I'll buy a penalty here, essentially. I think Tufan had one. Tufan, in fairness, was more just off balance, had been sort of knocked by the Millwall player and was off balance and sort of slipped over. And then Ohio towards the end as well. Maybe in his defense, still getting used to the physicality of the English game, but had a Millwall player sort of, I wouldn't call it pulling his shirt, but it was sort of like making contact, and then Ohio basically just stopped what he was doing. Ohio was a lot bigger and stronger than the Millwall player, but basically just stopped and looked at the ref for a free kick, and the Millwall player just took it off his feet and ran off with it. Just sort of three examples that sort of spring to mind, but just situations like that where I'd like to see the players just playing the ball, playing the whistle, and trying to create something themselves rather than relying on the ref. Like we've seen over the season, the refs aren't going to give us much. I think we've only had 2, maybe 3 penalties for the season. So it's not as if we're in the referees' good books in that sense. It's not as if we've got some great record of getting free kicks and penalties and that sort of thing. So it just felt as if the players are sort of, took the foot off the gas a little bit, thought that it would come for, it'd be made easy for them from the actions of others rather than having to do it themselves. And, Millwall, to their credit, really worked their way back into it in the second half. And I think they brought on Bradshaw, which I found at the time a really strange substitution, because I thought, I thought they'd be putting more defenders on, but that, I guess they sensed that the game was shifting a little bit, and it did, and they had a few really good chances. Allsop almost caught off his line, but then sort of redeemed himself with a few really good saves in the dying moments of the game as well to keep it at 1-0. And, ultimately 1-0, clean sheet, 2 clean sheets in a row. You take the 3 points, but, we'll talk about the games to come. You'd hope that there's a few big wins in the near future.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you talk about the players sort of looking for free kicks and that aspect of it, when like the way the goal came about was from players being so being aggressive and just trying to take the opportunity, trying to make a mark on the game. So certainly something to think about. Hopefully that's a little bit of with some of those players, especially in that front line, not knowing the others like enough yet, like that sort of sense of gelling where Philogene's going, if I take the shot, is anyone going to follow in maybe, or it's because maybe I'll just try and see if I can get a free kick or whatever. But you'd hope that sort of attitude shifts in the coming games. But I've forgotten.
I mean, look, on a positive front though, I mean, what I found so spectacular, even not just in those first 20 or 30 minutes, but throughout the game, was I feel like before his injury, Philogene, you sort of joked about it, was carrying up promotion hopes on his shoulders because he was sort of the star boy of the team. And then since his injury, we had Carvalho come through and, assist Morton for a goal and then get a goal for himself against Sunderland. You've now got them on the pitch together. You've also then added Zaruri. You've got Irma sitting in the wings, ready to come on and make an impact. You've got Tufan, who's no slouch either. You've then also got behind them, you've got Slater and Morton, who can contribute from midfield as well and have scored plenty of goals. You've then got Giles at fullback, who can push up and get forward and create opportunities. And Coyle can whip a ball in as well. There were times when it felt like there was, a front 6, front 7. We had Millwall really pretty much pinned in their box. And it felt like whoever the ball fell to, it wasn't like it was no disrespect potentially, but it wasn't like it was a Lakilo or an Ali or someone like that, where you feel like they're almost disrupting our rhythm, or they've got a poor touch, or that they're not going to actually be able to contribute. Whoever it fell to was, it was as if they were the star of the team. Like if it fell to a Carvalho and you're expecting him to do something, or it would fall to Philogene. Like it just felt as if that front line was just studded with attacking talent.
Yeah, I think it's it felt, it's been we haven't had like a Jun at the helm for too long, but we've seen sort of like between each season massive changes and massive turnover in players and steady improvement in the squad. But I think I guess it was just dependent on league position, and because of where we were and the opportunity that has we've managed to get us presented to us by the hard work and the results this season, that we are so close. And I fully understand. We've even spoken about, like, is it too soon to make that push? Because there are certainly going to be some interesting financial ramifications. Actually secure a promotion, and that is no way guaranteed. Even if we make the playoffs, there's going to be some really tough games in that. Those set of fixtures, with you look at who's in the top six, and who's fighting for, even just to fight out for the fight between maybe second and third is potentially heating up as well and looking interesting. So it's been very interesting. But Ajun has put his money where his mouth is, and he has backed us again, put some money forward, and almost undoubtedly improve the squad again in a short amount of time. Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, we've got an fairly insanely talented front line, particularly, and there's even we've still got Connolly to come back from his shoulder injury. I want to say that we've got Delap to come back.
There's louder and louder murmurings. I mean, there was, I think Rossini was saying
they're going to find out about whether he needed surgery or not very shortly. So
I think it's this Friday, so maybe Saturday our time. Yeah.
But where there's a chance that he may be back for the run in, and I mean, I fingers crossed. I mean, I really do hope that's the case, because he could be exactly what we need coming into that end of the season, just to add, give us just another point of difference, moving into that run in, hopefully into the playoffs, those sorts of things where you've got, just another element of pace and power. But, we've still got Traore. I think he'll be back shortly. You've got Seri to come back sometime in the next couple of weeks. We have built ourselves a really solid squad, and I mean, finally, it looks like that left back problem, again, fingers crossed, no injuries, any of that sort of nonsense, but I mean, it's one game, but for us, but he, Giles is a quality player, and he's shown, he's performed at that level very consistently before, which I think is probably different from, Vinagre, who sort of just had that bit of hype of playing in the Premier League a little bit. But yeah, I think it seems to be really smart acquisitions of guys who have, for the most part, been here. I don't know, not necessarily for the most part, but maybe half. Where we've got half of the guys that have come in this January window have been in the Championship and done it in the Championship. Zaruri's at Burnley last season. Giles was here with
Middlesbrough, I think.
Yeah. So guys who performed really well at this level. So I think it's a really nice progression with the squad. And I guess, now it's the challenge is there, the gauntlet is there, that we have to make the most of this opportunity, because it's there. It's there. The opportunity is there for the taking. And I think I heard some of them talking about, might have been Greaves or someone was saying that, like, this is, I think it was Slater saying something about, like, this is potentially the biggest opportunity in some of their footballing careers right now, is this these moments in the next few months. If they can make the playoffs somehow, get through, make to the Prem, that this is going to be the potentially, like, the highlight of their careers, is playing in the Premier League. So
it is. I don't like us putting. I don't want to put us to put all the eggs in the one basket, and I take your point from earlier that there are financial implications. I mean, we released our accounts yesterday. I'm still a little bit curious about that, because I think when you take into account the KLP sale, we only lost maybe 5 or 6 million. So coupled with the previous year where we lost 6 or 7 million as well, I think I want to say that even if this year we've lost a lot more because we haven't had a big player sale, I can't see us. I mean, I'm. If we don't go up, I expect someone like a Philogene will probably go, which will be really sad. But if we can get a really good fee for him, I don't see it as being, this year or bust for us. And I think we've put ourselves in a really good position. We've got a really good squad. Obviously, someone like a Carvalho won't be back here next year. Morden won't be back here next year, most likely. Giles, I think, would be. Delap probably wouldn't be either. I just don't want it to I think playoffs is now the minimum expectation. I don't think promotion should be viewed in the same way though, because I think, like you said, the teams in the playoff places are ferocious. Like you've hypothetically, if it's the table finished at the way it is now, the only team I'd probably confidently back us against is West Brom. I think Ipswich is probably a 50-50 proposition. And granted, I mean, Leeds, we actually went toe-to-toe with the last time we played them, although we did need that red card to Rodon early in the second half to really get to grips with it. And even then, I don't think we had a shot on target, which we should have, because Traore missed an absolute sitter. So in saying that, I'm sort of talking myself around. I think we're a chance against them, but they're all very good sides, and on their day have very good squads that could put us away. And so I'd hate for us to get to a position where we make the playoffs and we lose in the semifinals and it's a disaster and we should sack Rossini and we need to rip up the squad. And I think we're in a really, really good position. And I've said, well, I've thought for at least the last, 3 months or something, we're almost in the perfect position to really strengthen, to consolidate and aim for automatics next season. Because I look at the sides coming down as presumably going to be Burnley, Sheffield United, and one of Luton, Everton, Palace, maybe. And so I think that spot, maybe if it's a Palace or an Everton, might be the side that goes and does a Leicester from this season or Burnley from last season, who knows. Burnley coming down, sure, they might go straight back up as well. I don't know. But it's a much weaker relegated three potentially than we saw this year. So if anything, I see us having a better chance of going up automatically next year. You've got a more settled squad potentially. But I also take, like Slater's point, like this is a really solid opportunity. We've got the squad here and now. Who knows what's going to happen next year? Who knows what injuries or sales or what players other teams bring in can do. Like squads are now locked in for the rest of the season. We know what we've got. We know what everyone else has got. Maybe it's not wanting to get my hopes up or something. I don't know if that's what it is about it, but I'm just like, I don't want us to get so fixated on promotion that if we don't get promoted, it's like considered a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not like that. I think, we've got ourselves in a position where, like, as you said, playoffs should be the minimum expectation. But I think, promotion is an outside chance, but it's certainly a chance. And I think realistically, you have to set that as the goal. You have to set, promotion as a goal, and go from there. Because if you set, if you set the goal at playoffs, then you're not and you finish top 6, then you basically go, it doesn't matter what happens from here.
When it does.
It's certainly interesting. I just think it's going to be a really interesting finish to the season. I think I was just thinking when you were talking before about the squad that we have and the last time we made promotion. I was wondering your thoughts. Do you think that we currently is the best championship squad we've ever had?
It's an interesting question. I actually saw it raised as a question for the 1904 podcast earlier in the week. The way I sort of thought about it was, I think this squad has the most potential of a squad that we've had in terms of we've got some really strong young talent in the squad. But when I look at, for example, El Mohammadi, Robertson, Huddleston, Diami, Snodgrass, Hernandez, those sorts of guys, I think you're never going to have like one squad perfectly outweighs another squad. I think I look at like Philogene and I'm like, I think he's the most talented sort of player in that position that I've seen in a City shirt in terms of what he can do with the ball at his feet and that sort of thing. So like, it's so hard to compare them. It's definitely the best squad we've had since that promotion season. And I say that including that Premier League season, because even though we had, your Grzycki and all those guys came in the second half of the season, I still think as like a complete unit, and in terms of how they're playing together, this seems to be the best squad that we've had. That promotion, which I mean, in saying that, I mean, obviously a lot of those players were in that promotion squad, so it is basically the same squad, but we lost a few, I think. Like we lost the Army and then Snodgrass and Livermore left as well. Look, I think it's a really close one. I think the only thing that's holding it back for me is the striking position. I think probably, and maybe goalkeeper. I mean, we haven't seen Panda yet, so we don't know what he's like. I mean, it's a good sort of segue to talk about Ohio had his debut, came off the bench in this one and didn't really convince. I don't think the pitch helped him. I think he misjudged a few balls through the air, things like that, which it's really hard to make a complete judgment off him on 20 minutes. I'm hoping in these coming couple of games that we've got, we can see a bit more of what he can do. But I'd love it if he can score a couple of goals over the next few games and really get up and running, then that sort of eases that question in my mind. But I think it's tricky to answer until the end of the season. I think if we're sitting here at the end of the season and this side's gone up, and we can say of the three sort of playoff teams that we've had, which is the best, once they've done it, then I think it's a much easier discussion to at least have, to be able to say, look, these guys now have that on their CV. But at the moment, it's all potential, I think. But what do you think?
I just think, I mean, I probably am with you, similar to you as well. It is tough, and it's hard to say like outright which one's better. But I just think the almost position for position, man for man, that the guys that we have currently are probably like in terms of maybe technical ability are almost all superior. Barring a few exceptions, I would say someone like El Mohammedi over Coyle probably. Huddleston certainly is one of the most best on the ball we've probably ever had. Could hit just about anyone on his day, anyone on a sixpence, anywhere on the field. So, and probably goalkeeper as well. Who did we have?
Been McGregor, I think.
Was it McGregor? Yeah. I was going to say, because he was really, really good for us for a few years. So I think,
and Hernandez,
and probably Hernandez as just a striker who was just scoring goals for fun. As you say, I think that's sort of probably almost the one piece that's missing is we haven't been able to get, we haven't got a 20-goal striker in us at the moment. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it depends how it all plays out. But I'm kind of actually leaning towards, I kind of lean towards the current squad and almost say like this just is so impressive. And I don't know whether that's, I just think back and I go, no offense to, Klukas or Myler or any of those sorts of guys who were sort of there, but you just go, you've got, Tyler Morton who is just, ripping it up and he's just doing it all. I go, he's just oozes class compared to, like, we seem to have sort of a few more grafters maybe in the squad than we sort of do now. Even someone like Livermore, who is very handy in the ball, but I view him more as like a grafter than a really technical player. But I think that's also, I guess, to do with the management. Steve Bruce, he wanted those guys. He wanted guys who would, work hard, and that was sort of his approach, was that, we were going to work super hard as a squad and we were going to, defend our backsides off, and then, we'd, go down the wings with the wing backs and whip it in for someone, Hernandez or whoever, just to pop it in the net. But whereas I guess, Rosenior's system demands that we have, you need to be good on the ball. So, I guess that
so I think that probably plays into it, to be honest. It's the style of play definitely helps because you're more excited so maybe I'll say this squad is definitely the most exciting that I can remember us having. It's the side that I'm most excited to sort of stay up or wake up and watch and see what we can produce on the pitch. And that first 20 or 30 minutes against Millwall, and I think what actually prompted the question that I saw the other day on quality of the squad was basically that was the best football just about that we've seen City play. outside of maybe a patch of form under Marco Silva potentially, but just in terms of the ball movement, I say the creation. I mean, we didn't create that many chances against Millwall, so that's still to come. But it felt like when that goal went in from Philogene that it was just going to be one of those fun days, and it was unfortunate that it didn't turn out that way. But it feels like we've got one of those displays in us.
Yeah. I guess the other talking point, I think it was you sort of touched on it, was the state of the pitch, which was just horrendous. And it's embarrassing to play on, to beam that, to show that pitch to the world.
I don't know how do you talk to new signings about it as well? Like, do you just say to them, "Yeah, we know it's shit"? Like it must be so embarrassing.
It must be, and it's so like antithetical to like the approach that we've just been talking about, the way that Rosini wants to play football, which is on the ground and nice crisp passing, and that's like impossible to do on a shit pitch. And obviously, we all know the situation. It's a shared ground and shared with the bloody rugby league team and all sorts.
But they haven't even been. That's the thing, is that they haven't even been playing on it. Their season hasn't started yet. It's all the bad weather, and I'm like, I get it, but I'm also like, every other club in the championship is, well, okay, different parts of the country will have different weather, but there are other, like Sunderland, and I'm just testing my geography here, but Rotherham, Chef Wednesday, those guys, they're all geographically pretty Middlesbrough, they're all pretty close to us. And I'm not over there. I don't know what the weather's like in different parts of northern England, but I would imagine that it's not so different, that their pitches are so much better than ours. I think I did see that Tan said that each off season they basically strip the top layer off and reseed the grass, but that this off season they're actually going to full on like put in a new pitch, because that pitch has been there for so long now. It's like, so maybe that's more the issue, that it's the wear and tear of the dirt and everything.
It's been too long since it's been refurbished or whatever. I mean, I guess the positive is that they're not just going to try and sweep the problem under the rug, that if they are going to address it properly and just whole new everything, it'll probably mean potentially the start of next season we might still have some be a little bit rough as it still sort of all sets and settles in, but hopefully long term that that it's going to make an improvement.
I think I saw that the rugby league team has like a 6-week block where they're not playing at home, which is after our season finishes, which I think is when that refurb would be planned for. I did see someone say, like, if we make the playoffs, it sort of eats into that 6-week block. So I don't know what the plan is if that was to happen. I guess it's a good problem to have. But yeah, look, it's funny that actually in the run-in, it might actually be better for us playing teams away from home, because we'll be playing on a better pitch. And we've got Leicester and I want to say Ipswich, I think, are the two of the top 4 who have to actually play us at home. In a way, playing possession-heavy sides like them at home might bring them down to our level, ironically, somehow. So who knows? But
Leicester, we already beat them once. I'm not worried about them.
Well, that's it. It'll be funny if we actually end up doing the double over them somehow, given how this could all play out. But yeah, it's a really unfortunate one with the pitch. As you say, it's so ironic given the way that we want to play football, to have arguably one of the worst pitches in the division. I think I heard that, talking about Rotherham, I think Rotherham are the other ones who have a pitch that's not looking great. But Chef Wednesday and stuff are doing a lot better. So be interesting to see how that one pans out. Hey, look, we'll do our votes for this game, because we've sort of danced around a few topics, and we can do a quick wrap up of the window before we do the previews. But did you want to start with your votes?
Sure. I'm just going to go pretty quick. I thought about this very briefly beforehand, and I thought I'm going to go Philogene for the 3, a goal and quite a few really impressive contributions. I think there's a moment in the second half where he loses the ball, goes and wins it back, beats 2 players, a couple of 1-2s, takes it up the other end, sort of gets held up, and then sort of takes on 2 and wins a throw down in their territory. So just a few really impressive.
Just back from an injury, it's awesome to see what he's doing.
And I think that's. I think that's always the worry when a player has sort of a bit of a fair stint off, that, can they come back and recapture the form? And, I don't know, it feels like it's the experience of Hull City that normally they can't sort of come back and hit the ground running, but luckily he
And
seems
I was
to
surprised he
have.
played the full 90
Mm,
for more than one reason. I was surprised he had the fitness to play the 90, but also he got a yellow card and then gave away a pretty sort of silly free kick not too long after. And I was worried for a second he was going to get a second yellow, but didn't. And I thought, surely that's a good enough excuse just to sub him off and give him a rest. But he played the full 90 and did all right.
yeah, so I've gone 3 points to Philogene, and then I'm going to go 2 points to Zarori for a reasonably impressive debut for us. Set the goal up with his own attempt at goal. And then 1 point to Giles, who again I thought they haven't been at the club for very long before that game, and to gel in and bed in so well and perform so strongly, is testament, and hopefully they've been able to raise the expectation around the place, raise the level, and we can continue to perform at a high level for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gone Tufan for the 3 votes. I thought playing as the false 9, his energy and pressing and I suppose link up play with the rest of that front 4 was really great to see. I thought it was a great game from him. Zurore for the 2, as you say. I thought he had a really impressive debut, especially that first 20 or 30 minutes. Again, I just don't get how, like, him and Giles, having not played together before, the way that they were linking up, playing 1-2s, and even sort of dummy runs and things like that, which you think would come after playing together for weeks on weeks on the training ground, for them to have was awesome to see. So definitely the 2 votes for him. And then Philogene for the 1. I thought his work rate, his two-way running. The only thing I docked him points for, which is why I didn't get higher votes for me, is he sort of reminded me that he has this tendency, if he has a really good first half, he seems to go missing for patches of the second half, which is, look, he's coming back from an injury, so fitness will be a bit of an issue for him as well. So it's not too big a criticism, but just the 1 vote from me. Well, let's do a quick sort of discussion. We've sort of already touched on it a little bit, but just in terms of the window closing late last week, the comings and goings. Obviously, Zarori and Ömer confirmed on deadline day. There was at one point rumours. It's a shame because we fall asleep and miss a big chunk of the final day. The rumour started and was dismissed whilst we were asleep, just about, with Callum Chambers. I think I saw just before I went to sleep him being linked to West Brom, and sort of half jokingly to myself thought, oh, we seem to be in for everyone. Why don't we have a crack at getting him as well? And it turned out we did actually get quite close to signing him. Would have been like sort of a centre back, right back covering role for him, which would have been something that we probably would have needed. But we also saw quite a few players go out on loan. We saw Vaughan went to Bristol Rovers. Who else went out? Lakilo
Woods went out again.
Woods went out. Obviously, Ali was sold. Cynic went back to Turkey.
Oscar moved from
no, I think that that hasn't happened. So Brazil's window is still open. So I think he's training with the club, but the move's apparently looking shaky. And so I was saying today, because I saw that it was sort of in doubt, I was like, it reminds me a bit of Hernandez when he got injured and so didn't get sold, and then came back from injury and scored a bunch of goals for us, almost against the wishes of the owners. If Oscar sort of misses out on his move and Rossini goes, oh, well, I guess I'll have to play him in the squad, and then he ends up scoring like, half a dozen goals for us, would be quite funny. So that will be an interesting one to watch over the next couple of days. But I think that was just about it. I think Lo Tatala went out to Doncaster as well. So a few moves like that. Yeah. But yeah, pretty frantic end to the window. And I think it's been pretty widely recognised to be, I'd say it's just about the strongest window in the top 2 divisions.
Yeah, so just lots of movement. And I think like some of them are, they're just winding down contracts. Like Woods, for example, is one where I think it's just, we don't want him here, but he's not really doing enough. No one's really that interested, so he's just shifted on a loan to wind that down. He'll probably go on a free, but I don't think we paid much for him anyway, if we paid anything. Yeah, I think really, realistically, I think pretty much it's all like you can't really argue with any of those movements. I know some people were. I think Andy Smith went out on loan, and there's some murmurings that that's a bit disappointing because we sort of lose, a piece of coverage there. But I think bringing Giles in means that you've got McLaughlin just as a straight as that backup, and you don't have to worry about, in theory, Greaves having to go to left back and then bring Macca in and then needing an extra piece of cover. So I don't know. I think it's good that someone like Andy Smith, like those guys, go and get game time, because I think, while it would be good to have him at the club and maybe come off the bench a few times, it's probably a bit more beneficial for him in the long run and for us in the long run if he goes and gets to play 10 or 12 games or something in this last half of the season. So I think quite a few of those young boys went out, which is good. I think Vaughan as well in the same boat. It's in a sense, it's disappointing because he seems like he's going to be the next sort of our next big thing, and there's still plenty of time. Like, he's still very young, but just couldn't quite make it work enough this season to force his way into that first team regularly enough. So going away, I think down a division or two,
one division,
play some, get some regular games, build some confidence back up. And have another crack, next season or whatever, I think is good for him. Lakilo just had to go somewhere else. And it's fine. It's just one of those ones that just hasn't worked out. And I think
it's a cheap gamble that, they're not always going to pay off. Yeah.
It wasn't a huge thing. It's not, it's not like the alley where we've paid $3 million or something for him. And it just hasn't, and it's been a bit of a slow burn, but luckily we've managed to get a bit of money back. For Ali at least. Cynic, just I don't even know what happened there. Just never. He played like 3 games and in all that, and just was been on, I don't know, injury treatment table or homesick the whole time. So it's just been a weird one. But again, you go, well, these are two or three misses that you're talking about, but you just think about all the players that have come in that time that have actually been really successful. And I think we have done really well, not just this window, but I think over the last probably 2 or 3 windows in building up a squad of quality. We've just been making sort of incremental progress each time. And you're almost looking at the squad now going, okay, well, if this is the benchmark that we have now, then come end of the season, you're going guys like Doherty, Traore, maybe McLaughlin, some of those guys we're going, there are probably some spots we can make upgrades. Obviously, we've got a bit of a loan army at the moment as well, so there's going to be some holes to fill, but potentially a couple of those get turned into permanents. But
it's interesting. I mean, even in talking about that, so Irma coming in feels almost like, and same with Panda in a sense, is that it feels like we've almost taken 2 bits of business we would have done in the summer and just made those moves 6 months early to give those guys a chance to bed in with the squad, get used to England and acclimatise. And it sort of plays into my point earlier about almost it not being the end of the world if we don't go up this season, and aiming for the automatics next season also makes sense, because you think, if you've got guys like Irma who've come into the squad and not been sort of required to hit the ground running, and to instead just, get their chances as they come up to fitness, as they get to know the squad, etc. Irma,
Bob is awake.
All good.
Just keep talking. I'll be listening.
All good. It's almost as if Irma has been brought in to fill that spot that we've essentially, it was originally Twine at the start of the season, Cavallio from January. It's almost like we've said, okay, well, obviously we want a permanent replacement for that position in summer. We've got Irma who's available now. Let's bring him in. So it's almost as if we've already got that replacement for Cavallio in the squad. Giles, I would expect, will make permanent. Morton's probably the one where I'm like, we probably just need someone in the summer to come into that position. Maybe it's we get another player on loan from Liverpool or whoever, and obviously striker as well, where at the moment it's Delap or a Hio at the moment. And Sharp as well is probably going to go because it's a short-term contract. So there is a few little gaps still in the squad, and maybe you look at right back and say you want someone a bit more attacking than and high quality than Coyle. Who knows? And as you say, maybe it's centre back as well. Because if in the summer we say, well, we need to make some money, we're going to sell a player. Maybe we sell Greaves, or maybe we do sell Philogene, and then I'd almost say that's like a one out, one in situation. Because I think we've got a quality squad enough now that when we start to lose those players, we're actually getting significant fees for them. It's not like we're selling a Honeyman, for 500 grand or whatever we got for him. Like, it's actually top quality players where if we're losing them, we're getting a good fee. You think like guys like Ryan Longman to come back in the squad, who presumably will try to sell, wouldn't get as high a fee for him. But there's a lot of players in our squad that hopefully, if we're looking to make a few sales in the summer, they do start to give us a reasonable amount of income. It's not a James Scott or someone like that.
I think it's a fair point. That I guess it'll just be interesting to see how it all plays out in the summer, and obviously it's all going to be very dependent on how this season ends up, and I guess that starts this weekend.
Yeah, it's a great segue, because I'm looking at the time. It's been a long episode, so look, we'll talk these two games in conjunction, because it is a pretty similar discussion across the two games. They're both very winnable games against sides really struggling for form. Swansea, now managed by Luke Williams, who's been there since the start of January, haven't won a game under him yet. They've lost 3 in a row after drawing his first game. Whereas Rotherham have Liam Richardson, who's been there since December, and they've not been too good most recently. I think they've only won 1 game actually since his appointment, and we beat them 4-1 back in November. Of course, casting our minds back to that Swansea fixture, was the game that we watched together, 2-0 down at halftime and clawed back to a 2-2 draw. So we remember that one quite well. But yeah, I look. So Swansea game is obviously at home. So again on a poor pitch. But it's been a week. We've got a week on the training pitch under the belts for the new guys, and then we go away to Rotherham midweek. It's hard not to look at this and think, this should be 6 points.
I mean, I think had probably either of the last 2 games had the result been anything different, I'd probably be maybe a little bit more hesitant about that sort of declaration. But I think, you go into these 2 games with a little bit of form behind you, with, the exciting new players, with, I think really is, and just some of those important holes filled. I think, that the importance, I think, of getting a quality left back into to fill that spot, I think is, not something that can be understated. And I think I'm hoping that, he continues to prove me right in that, with that sentiment. But I sort of tend to agree with you that this is 6 points begging, and I think also like an opportunity to really start buffering up that goal difference as well. I think, Millwall, that was probably a chance gone begging to just add another 2 or 3 to our goal difference. But I think across these couple of fixtures, I think realistically, it's the opportunity there again to just say, like, because I think we're only about +6 or something.
We are, yeah. I was actually just having a look at the table, because we're talking, potentially 6 points and potentially buffering the goal difference. It's also about buffering up a spot in the top 6. And I thought, I'll have a look at who West Brom's next 3 games are, just to get a sense of if there's a chance that they might be dropping points in the next few games. West Brom's next 3 games are Ipswich, Cardiff, and Southampton. So you think of those 3 games, surely they're dropping at least, call it 3 points minimum, I'd say. So you think if we were to win the next 2 games, there's every chance that we're actually sitting in 5th as we go into, I think, is it Huddersfield that we have after Rotherham. So you don't want to be counting our chickens before they hatch too much, but it's a really, really strong opportunity to not only sort of solidify a spot in the top 6, but actually move up to 5th and start to look up rather than down necessarily.
Yeah, and I think as well as that, it's, trying to recreate that, some sort of a buffer again. We had it, we lost it, and now, moving into that this, we're not quite in the run in yet, but in this last sort of section of the season, this second half is really then just about, as you say, consolidating, but also just creating that buffer, making that safety net between us and the chasing pack, and just trying to, make that future or the finish to the season as safe as possible, as soon as possible.
And I think
for once, we're talking about safety, not in the sense of safety from relegation, which is really weird, but very nice.
Yeah. I think as well, when I look at, because it always feels as if as soon as we have that opportunity to create that buffer, we seem to drop points. Like I think back to that Chef Wednesday game as an example. It seems that it's because we just don't have the personnel to make the changes to try something different in the game. And I now look at our squad and I look at the fact, as I said at the start, that you've got like your Zarure and your Philogene and your Irmo, if you need to throw him off the bench, Carvalho as well. Like there's a lot of talent in that front line that if one player's off his game, it's not as if that's, defining for us as it once was.
Yeah, I think that our bench now looks a lot healthier than it did. I think even on the weekend there was two young lads.
Yeah, Sellers Fleming and Ashby.
Sellers Fleming and Ashby, and the rest were, fairly seasoned professionals. So it does make a big difference. And as I think I mentioned before, Connolly hopefully isn't. I don't know what the extent of his shoulder injury is, but hopefully it's not.
Hopefully it's not as bad as his toe.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's weird. Very strange. Connolly.
I think his pain threshold is quite low.
It does sort of seem that way. But yeah, if
got a bit of a twinge in the shoulder, it's going to be another week. It's not.
I mean, I don't know about twinge. He did bloody cop it.
Yeah, he definitely did. He definitely did. But it's as the weeks go by, you start to go, it can't be.
I mean,
it's not dislocated.
Who knows what it is? But I mean, somebody knows, just not us.
Yeah.
Look, another potentially, hopefully, in the next few weeks, is another cog that we can add to that. To the wheel again. I think if you, as much as Sellers Fleming has a bright future right now, I'd probably rather Connolly on the bench than Sellers Fleming, or Connolly starting and Tufan on the bench or whatever. And suddenly you've got a really quality, full match day. What is it, 18 or whatever? Going in week to week. So I think. It's been good business. We've got ourselves in a good position, again, after almost trying very hard a couple of times this season to throw a good position away. We've reconsolidated. We're in a great position for this last, somewhere between a half and a quarter. I could call it something quarter, section of the season, and a good opportunity to in the next week or so to nab 6 points and really just start nailing that home. So really excited.
Absolutely. Score predictions for these two?
I was thinking about this before, and I was like, would it be rude of me, as much as I was talking about buffering our goal difference, we're 2 1-0s in a row. How many 1-0s in a row do you think we go? And what's the record for the number of 1-0s in a row? No, I reckon we get a couple. I'd see maybe probably like a 2-0 maybe against Swansea. I think the last time we played them, it was a weird game. They didn't seem like they had that much. They actually were playing really well. Or they just had a couple of opportunities and sort of.
That was one of Allsop's first bad games where I think he kind of cost us the goals. Where outside of the goals, they didn't really offer that much.
Yeah, so I don't think they were that strong. So I can see us. We seem to have the defense maybe a little bit settled again now, where we're sort of keeping some clean sheets semi-regularly. So I can see us going maybe like a 2-0, and then I don't know. One of these games, it'll be one of those dog shit goals that we can see. It'll be a 3-1 or something like that at Rotherham again, where they're going to score on like their first kick of the game, and then we'll go and wipe the floor with them.
Yeah, Rotherham seem to be. I don't have the stats in front of me. They seem to be a side that we do like to beat up on, which there aren't that many, because I feel like we tend to not. Like for example, Huddersfield seem to be an absolute bogey side where we feel like we should be beating them, and then they kind of scrap a 1-0 win against us, and it's really frustrating. Whereas Rotherham, like I remember the game earlier in the season when we beat them 4-1, and I think going into it, we were really nervous that we were going to stuff it up. And then was it Philogene scored after like 3 minutes, and then Quine got a tap in, and then Philogene had his back heel, and we were kind of going, yeah, okay, this isn't as stressful as it was going to be. I think like maybe a 2-0 or a 2-1 against Swansea. I agree. I don't know if that's going to be as comprehensive. I haven't seen a whole lot of them under their new manager, so I don't know what they're playing like at the moment. But 3 losses in a row, they're not doing too well. And then Rotherham, I reckon like a 4-0. I think I tipped a 4-0 against Millwall and thought I was looking pretty good early on, and it didn't eventuate. But I'll go the 4-0 against Rotherham. So hopefully we can get a couple more goals. And I guess looking at that fixture for West Brom as well, just sort of underlines just how important it is to take those take these wins if we can bank them, because as much as it's about the number of points we're inside the top 6, if you start to put teams between you and teams outside the top 6, it actually means it's harder to be displaced because they have to sort of jump over the other team as well. So it does help in that sense as well. If we could get up to 5th, also, as we were talking about at the start of the episode, now that the battle for the top 2 is heating up, if you avoid the team that comes 3rd, it might actually be quite beneficial as well. So 5th is actually something pretty decent to play for. So it'll be interesting. But look, there's still plenty of games to go. I think it's really only when you get to maybe 10 games left that you can really start to focus on all those machinations. So we'll just have to knock these 2 games off and see where we're at. But look, thank you for joining me for this one.
Yeah, no problems.
And thanks everyone for listening in. Hopefully we're back this time next week with another 2 wins under our belts and 6 points to talk about. But until then, come on, City.